Hello and welcome to the Print Political Adda. It has been 3 weeks since ethnic clashes in Manipur resulted in the death of about 70 people. Sitting in Delhi, we thought situation was getting back to normal. But my colleague Moushumi Das Gupta visited Manipur. She has just come back and she has come back with very disturbing news. To discuss its implications and what lies in store, what's there in future for Manipur, we have got two esteemed guests, brilliant academics who are from Manipur and who teach at Jawaharlal Nehru University here in Delhi. So we have Dr. Bimol Akoijam and Dr. Thongkholal Haokip. Before we go to them, let me ask Moushumi what she witnessed there. What was so disturbing about it?
So I went there on May 9th. We landed there on May 9th, a week after the violence had broken out on May 3rd. And when we reached there, there was curfew. Curfew was imposed in the state, and the internet was shut. Also, what we saw was from the time we landed at the airport, when we came out of the Bir Tikendrajit International Airport, so there were these hordes of people who were sitting outside the terminal. They were sitting on bed sheets, newspapers, and they were mostly, so we spoke to them, we spoke to many of them. So they were mostly the Kukis who were, flying out of Manipur and flying out, some to their relatives' house in Delhi, some to the neighboring states of Assam, Meghalaya. So we spoke to a couple of them and we asked them that why are they moving out? So they said that right now in capital Imphal, they are not feeling safe. So, and also these people who are flying out of Manipur, they said that, right now they don't know when they are going to come back. They have government jobs. So they said that right now they are going on temporary leave, but they don't know when they can come back and how safe it will be in Imphal. So that was one side. So when we went out of the airport, of course, there was curfew. So we visited some relief camp. And in the relief camp, again, it was the same story. So we went to this Khuman Lampak sports complex where the district administration had set up a relief camp for the Meiteis. So Meiteis who have been living in places like Churachandpur, More. So they were evacuated and they were brought to this sports complex, and basically the tribal march was to protest against this demand to give scheduled tax status to the Meiteis. So the march was going on peacefully, and then there is no clarity about exactly what happened and how violence erupted, who instigated whom. So there are different...
that was the 3rd of May.
That was on 3rd of May. So the violence broke out first in Churachandpur and then it moved to More.
So what you have been reporting, Moushumi, is there is a kind of physical, geographical division happening in Manipur now. It's like partition. So you have Kukis who are returning to the hills, who have already returned to the hills, and Meiteis are there in Imphal Valley now. So this kind of division, how serious is that?
It is because, even the observers and the people back there in Imphal said that, something like this is unprecedented. They have not seen this. Manipur has seen ethnic clashes before between communities, be it the Naga Kuki clash in 1992-93. But this type of, exodus of the communities. For instance, after the violence broke out, what happened was all the Meiteis who were living in the hill districts of Churachandpur, More, the government says the government figure is 10,000 to 11,000. So they were evacuated from their village and brought to the relief camps, which was set up in the hill district. Similarly, in the valley where the Kukis live who were working, so their number the government is saying is around 20 to 22,000. So they were rescued from their homes, from their localities, and brought to relief camps across the valley. After some 4 or 5 days, the government decided that they will take out the Kukis from the valley and send them back to their home in the hill districts. So buses escorted by the army, the Assam Rifles, they took, they escorted the Kukis from the valley to their hometowns in hill districts. And similarly, a similar thing happened in the hills from where the Meiteis who were put up in the relief camps. So they were escorted to the valley.
So what you witnessed was like you do not really see any Kukis left in Imphal now. Even the constabulary, even they have left.
I was speaking to the senior officers in the Manipur police. I went to the police headquarters. So they said that barring the top, as in the DGP and the ADGP, most of the, I mean, even in the senior level, say SP, SP, DSP, and the middle level, the junior level, most of these officers, staff, the constabulary, the riflemen, they have left. They have taken temporary leave and they have left. They have gone out of Imphal. And this is police, even in the civil administration, in the secretariat, for instance, where the government sits. So senior officers, couple of them IS, but Manipur Civil Services and all. So many of these Kuki officers, staff, officials, they have moved out. There's hardly, you'd be hard pressed to find a Kuki officer in the secretariat right now. So what they're saying is pretty disturbing. What they're saying is that, for instance, in the police, they are saying that, when violence broke out on May 4th, so the DGP's house was attacked, as in the house was attacked by a mob from outside.
DGP is a Kuki.
DGP is a Kuki, Mr. P. Dongel. And then the additional DGP, Mr. Clay Khonsiam, his house was attacked. And they live in this upscale area of Lamphel, where you have the quarters of all these top bureaucrats of the government, the ministers, the MLAs live. And there was this mob of about 1,000 people. Nobody knows who they are, and they came with iron rods and they started, pelting stones inside the ADGP's house, and they were trying to break open. They were trying to scale the gate to enter the house. So these people are saying that, when the constabulary or the riflemen, when they see that even the DGP or the ADGP is not safe, so, who is there to protect them? So that fear psychosis started, and that's when they, decided that they...
In fact, what Moushumi was telling me, she wanted a driver to go with her to take her to Churachandpur, and nobody was willing. Nobody was going to go to that side. So this kind of physical division. Dr. Akoijam, how serious do you think it is, this kind of large scale ghettoization? Kukis confined to Churachandpur, Meiteis and Imphal. What are its implications?
You see, one thing, you look at globally speaking, one thing, and I happen to be associated with partition studies in this subcontinent, one level is, it is a clear sign of what you have experienced in partition of this subcontinent in 1947. It's a similar kind of thing. The fact is, you must recognize this. This is happening in the 21st century. In a country which had that experience of partitions, people moving out, civilians being targeted for a particular kind of a political project. So in that sense, I take this as an epochal experience. It will have a far-reaching implications in the days to come. So you take it, but unfortunately, that's why the gravity of the situation is such. Yet there is barely any remark from the central government. I haven't heard the Prime Minister saying anything or the political class appealing anything. In between, the CM said to maintain peace and so on once, but I think his voice was also by far the weakest. For a person who was very active in social media or otherwise, there's a complete silence of the political class, both from the union government as well as from this. Given the enormity of this violence, it's not a normal riots that you see. It's almost like an ethnic cleansing project. It is almost like partition. But you must remember here, the first thing why I'm saying is very serious is that the only moment that I can recollect is the partition of the subcontinent. You are enacting the same in a state, in this country. And this writing were on the walls for a long, long time that this is going to happen. This violence, as I understand, is an orchestrated violence with materials which have been building up over the years. You think that rally by the tribal student organization was a spark, or the forest survey or the eviction is the spark. These are pretexts. Every orchestrated violence has a political aim. The political aim of separate political entities marked by a given population and so on. That project has been implemented on the ground now. And the manner in which these things have happened makes me feel that more things will come out if you do a proper, my feeling right at the moment is that once the peace is achieved, a relative peace, so to speak, in the sense of controlling the violence. The violence is still happening, involving armed militants now, that they are firing at villages, they are burning stills. It's going on, I mean, as we talk. Let's not assume that the violence has ceased to exist. But, I've seen this political leadership saying that now that the peoples have been moved from each thing, so we should have a separate political entity, separate administration, and so on. So I think when you look at it, I have a deeper suspicions that this violence is not a random riot. This is one thing, is that this has been building up for a long, long time, and every orchestrated violence has a political goal, and that goal has come out very clearly now, that you have a territory marked out with different peoples, defined. These identities are produced through this violent act, by the way. When you say Kuki, you must also remember that this is a conglomeration of various tribes. And it is a shifting sand, the boundaries. See, between, say, Meiteis and Kuki, you are calling today as part of the same, they fought a bloodied conflict in the 90s. You must understand that's one. And you mobilize this group. It's a mobilization of an ethno-nationalist projects with certain imaginations of a territory, and that has been done. I think it is very clear now that things have come up, but I think this political project has been going on for decades, and it has been implemented on the ground. Now, the silence of the government in this sense is amazing to me at one level, and deeply, deeply disturbing. At one plane. Why is that your security forces were not able to crack down on the violence, be that in Churachampur or be that in Imphal? As a citizen, as a person who is deeply, deeply in touch and in love with that place, because it's my home state, for me, it doesn't matter if it is a tribal or non-tribal. When I see small kids running with the bags and baggages, whether it is a tribal or a non-tribal, doesn't matter. I realize that who is getting benefit out of this violence. I can see this, my students. I have a colleague whom I treat like my own brother. He escaped. And why should he escape from a place? He wanted to work. He was working with us in Delhi. He wanted to be back home. He says, Tamo, I am happy here. He's a tribal guy. Why is that happiness gone? Why is that happiness been deprived from that man? It disturbs and hurts me. And I'm saying that for the political, the players who are orchestrating this one way or the other, for them these human stories are nothing. As long as you achieve your political gain, a few bloodshed, a few loss of life is the price they think it is to be paid. And I think the sinister design of a politics of this kind, of an exclusivist, ethno-nationalist organization, and putting innocent lives into, danger like this, I think government of India, if we are remembering partition now, even as a separate, Prime Minister said that we'll remember it. You must not allow any sectarian violence to disturb people's life like this. And I am firmly of the opinion that come what may, the government of India must institute a judicial inquiry into the chain of events and the failure of the state security forces, or I mean not only the Manipur police, but the entire law and order machineries, why it has collapsed. India is one of the most powerful countries with the armed forces. You have been using AFSPA and all this stuff. Why that the capital city was allowed to be in that state, and why is that violence was erupted in Churachampur. The tribal rally was happened everywhere. Wherever there is a talk of outsiders or something of that kind, why Churachampur burns, not the other cities or the towns in the hill areas. These are matters that we need to discuss and then put in the front. But most important right now is that two things. Why this violence has been allowed to happen? Was there an intelligence report on the likely things because of the development? Is if the intelligence report is there, why that you did not act upon it? Why is that the violence is allowed to linger on even today? You have these militant groups which is in talk with the government of India and so on and so forth. With the armed forces, which is one of the largest and the strongest one, where you have a legal instrument, which is a legal fictions to trouble people for decades, why you are not invoking the army? But what I'm saying is, this violence, this mayhem that has been allowed to happen, be that in Churachampur or in Imphal, must be fixed. We must investigate and fix responsibility. And the second, make it sure that the people can work and come back, whether it is in Imphal or in Churachampur, should be allowed. No partition, sectarian politics should be given any form of encouragements. For a country which has suffered enough on the basis of that partition in 1947, the ghost of that partition still haunts this country in terms of communal riots, and this is going to be allowed in that part of the country. We will not allow this one. So I think that's the thing, that the seriousness is enormous. That in a democratic country like this, you are allowing people to move partition style. Even to mention partition must have given a goosebump in you. Making films on partitions and its legacies in this country, and you are allowing to happen simply because it is in the periphery of the nation, and nobody makes a comment on that one. And then you allow this propaganda and hate campaign to go on. Why are you allowing this?
Professor Haokip, let me come to you on this. What he's suggesting, that these clashes were well organized. Writing was on the wall was clear. There was a political project behind it. Do you agree?
I think I agree on that point, but what my view would say is maybe on the contrary, because to me it's like a political machination. Like I will raise this point on two things. For instance, when in November 2022. A special order was issued by the Forest Department saying that, after 37 years, this order has been wrongly done. So you are becoming encroacher, you are becoming, you are the trespassers into this protected forest. But
the eviction campaign you're talking about.
Looking into that, the order, we can find that, the allegation that the assistant forest officer was not competent authority. Then who is the competent authority? The order has not declared. There is no clear indication of who was the competent authority 37 years ago. And if there's no indication, then the assistant forest officer was the competent authority. So why question all those those orders issued, about 40 years ago? That's the point where people got agitated, and how suddenly after 37 years, 40 years, people become encroachers in their own land. They have their own land records dating back to 150 years ago. So that's the trigger point. And look into how that violence started. We have evidence of how a tribal centenary gate was desecrated, and that is punishable under SC/ST Act, and that triggers the violence in Kangwai. Who started? How it started? There could be contesting claims, but why was the police not controlling it? That's the question. And I can observe one live video. In the live video, there is a comment from the other group saying that do not identify the other group as how. This means tribal. Particularly identify them as Kukis, not as a tribal. So there was a kind of targeting going on the Kukis among the tribals also. That's how it was planned. And look into the timing of how APSPA was removed. It was only last month that APSPA was totally removed from Imphal Valley. Especially those areas where violence started between Churachandpur and Bishnupur district. Those Nambol, Mura police stations were removed only in March. And look into the how a group of people who claims to be a cultural revival group gathering in thousands to supposedly train themselves in self-defense and others. So this kind of mobilization, radicalization is going on in the Imphal Valley also. These are something which happen under the nose of the government, and this has not been controlled. And we look into how it happened, then it has been systematic. For instance, on my opposite eyes, my colleague might agree or disagree also. It happens. And at some is just playing that, this fear that we don't want, the tribal status to the dominant community, because they have fears of, their reservation quota, the legal reservation quota going out, and then their land insecurity is there. Because the dominant community has many reservations, for instance, SC, they have OBC, they can also enjoy the EWS reservation, right? So these are the concerns that have been shared, besides being, a language that has been scheduled in the constitution. So you can write civil service and other in Manipuri. So that's a disadvantage in writing civil service and others. So these are the concerns expressed by the by Akoijam. But however, in this, how this breakout, it seems like a pre-planned, a well thought out, and targeting of the Kuki community rather than fighting back the tribals. That's what I could say.
Is it an ethnic conflict or an ethno-religious conflict?
Okay, I think, I try to avoid word for a long time as a professional academic. I don't like this term called ethnic, because inherently it gives you an idea of a common origin, common thread, because these people, the so-called tribal and the non-tribal, they come from the same racial stock, same linguistic family. When I was comparing this, Guwahati, the Brahmaputra Valley and the Naga Hills, it is a depression and the hill. In Manipur, it's all part of the mountainous topography. Imphal and hill areas is part of the hill state. Planning Commission since 1960 is called Manipur a hill state. And Assam, a state with hill areas. They have the two distinctions: state with hill areas versus hill state. Manipur is a hill state. So it's a false dichotomy has been created. And then within the same speaker, Ahomia is an Indo-Aryan language, and Naga and the Tibeto-Burmese language. All these people who are fighting in Manipur come from the same linguistic, same racial stock. So I don't want to call it an ethnic. Now, religious is a tricky part, and I must tell you, this time I've seen some training. This divide has been played out in places of worship, including churches. Do not think that in church you only preach religious and spiritual matter. There are documentary evidence on this. You have preachers speaking about the communities and ridiculing as a pagan religious practices and so on, false god and that kind of a thing. Similarly, I see this time that the religion is sought to be invoked even in the valley. So there it is a color of this one. So I said it's neither an ethnic conflict nor a religious conflict, though religion is sought to be invoked. And I think in that sense we have to be very careful whether it is an ethnic conflict. They are from the same ethnic groups. And then some people are trying to use that as a religious dimension which has been invoked. But I know it's a longer story. That is what is happening in the larger politics around us has been impacted here.
Because the way people are looking at it from outside, who do not know much about Manipur, the Meiteis, they are largely Hindus, tribals mostly follow Christianity, and this is somewhere playing out as the impression we are given here.
See, during the Naga Kuki class, churches were burned down. Love thy neighbor is a biblical teaching. Did that affect them? This is politically motivated violence. It's a pure politics, and violence is an expression on both the end and the means of that politics for some people. So I'm only saying that don't call it an ethnic conflict, because by calling it ethnic conflict, you are already consolidating the narrative that these are different people.
That also shows our ignorance of Manipur.
Say, by the way, in India, I'll tell you one more thing. ethnic and ethnicity as a term, in the globally speaking, was reinvented with a new vigor after the post-colonial period, because the race as a term becomes problematic. So the same element of what we communicate with the race has been now shifted to ethnic. In the new vocabulary, a politically correct expression of the same racial issue, you're calling it ethnic. Now, in India, in all social science literature, whenever the group conflict happens in the Northeast, you call it ethnic conflict. When the group conflict happens in the rest of the country, you call it communal violence, community violence. So that this racially framed epistemic framing, the knowledge framing, both produced by the academia and politics. So that's why ethnic is only used in Northeast.
Yeah. So, Professor Bimol was talking about how, Manipur should not be partitioned on ethnic lines, right? Let me point it out. When there was a plan to give Manipur statehood around 1969, 70s, there was a kind of suggestions to protect the tribals also on the lines of sixth schedule. So if you look into the archival sources, you will find that there were suggestions to have a Kuki autonomous councils as well as a Naga autonomous councils. Those were neglected for so long, for instance. And if you look into the demand for sixth schedule status of these councils, it has been going on for 45 years. If we don't want to participate, the state on, ethnic lines, why were there oppositions of extending sixth schedule, which is the kind of normal self-governance of the tribals in other parts of the northeastern states? So this has to be, examined properly. And secondly, coming to that, desecration of the tribal monument or centenary gate. That place, Leishang, is just 1 kilometer from the Bishnupur-Satanpur border. So people can sneak into it very easily, right? So that's how it can be done. So I wanted an impartial input into all these events, and those responsible should be held accountable for it. From the top of the bureaucracy, from the top of the political brass till the bottom, that is very much needed to dig out who is responsible for it. And secondly, in terms of there's a painting of the Kukis as immigrants, this and that. So there's a huge demonization going on these communities, which the community has been bearing for quite some time. There are problems of drugs. There are problems of so-called immigration, right? We have a neighboring country called Myanmar, which has unrest. There are many unrest going on, fighting against the military junta, and people are trying to escape. In Mizoram, there is a system evolved where you have temporary cards which would be available in the state of Mizoram, and when there is a peace restored, they will go back. We have our own ethnic communities in the Kabobi area also. In order to save their lives, they are rushing towards the Indian border. They are there in the border trying to make a living, and they would definitely go back when there is peace in Myanmar, because Kabo Valley is a fertile land as well as thriving trade existing in that township. So they will go back. So why can't we devise a plan where they could come for a while and return back when there is peace? So, and the other thing is that in India we have a legal framework where you detect immigrants, right? And why can't we implement, if you are suspicious, why can't we use the state machinery to detect all those immigrants? If you are suspicious of Satanpur, do some kind of, this kind of, mechanisms to work out in Satanpur or maybe More or any place. We have already a mechanism. Why blame the whole community every time, demonize them so as to dehumanize them? So this is very wrong. And, this narrative, which is going on for quite some time, has been, very heavy for the community. And recently, there is a selective targeting which I have already described to you how it was programmed. So these are the things that has to be looked into also. And regarding this allegation of copy cultivation also, of course, that existed, and for some time. And we have participated with the government. I also suggest ways to curb this cultivation. And for the last 1 year, with the help of the state government and civil society organization, it has been reduced to more than 80%. Now you go use drones, use everything, and look into it. They are all Zoom fields, no cultivation at all. So that is the current situation. So we have to have a kind of soul searching. Blame gaming has to go, and then now that the conflict has already been here, so many people, the Kukis will not want to go back to Imphal in another year. So why go to Manipur Secretariat and say that there is peace and calm? This kind of projection has to go, because there is fear in every Kuki that they could be killed anytime when they return back to Imphal. So this has to be clearly noted, because I talked with a senior bank manager, and then there is a call from the general manager somewhere in India, and they talk. And it's impossible to go back for any Kuki to work in Imphal. So this situation, that situation has to be recognized, on the ground.
Both you and Dr. Akoijam, you're suggesting that all this has been organized, orchestrated, and there is a political project behind it. Can you tell us what political project are we talking about here?
I think in the last few years, or maybe recently, many of the BJP legislatures were resigning, right? We all know about that political development. Four of the so-called who has taken certain work or certain in the government, there are certain posts which were given to them, and then after 1 year they resigned from that, because they stated that they were not given any work for the last 1 year, right? So within the BJP legislators also, there are some kind of rumblings, and then they wanted to change the political leadership. So I think it's kind of a political project of Begin also. When his chief minister's chief is in danger, he is orchestrating this kind of design so that he remains as the chief minister. That's something very suspicious. I think there is a saying by Jad Milani, who says that when there is a potential that you will lose power, the power corrupts absolutely. So that's exactly happening in Manipur. And why was the chief minister silent for more than 18 hours since the violence broke out? He did not appeal for calm. He did not use the state machinery fully to restore normalcy, to block or to prevent any kind of arson and looting in fire. That's very sad, and it's very clear that there is kind of political involvement. That's what I can say.
I think, you question what you're asking is, and we need to go back. That's why I was saying that there are a lot of things. The basic problem in Manipur is such a small, compact place with a population of New Delhi district. You have how many districts in Delhi? 7? So one of the district called South Delhi's population is the population of Manipur. And you keep on dividing on various false artificial lines and hill and valley. Same linguistic and racial group of people, you are splitting into various categories. All right, this has been groomed, and this competitive electoral politics have been utilizing this. Based on this, then ethno-national politics have been utilizing. So when I am using the word political game, it is based on this one. And there is a grievances, let's face it, there is a grievances among the ST communities in Manipur. Okay, that their development has been sort of sidelined, and the valley has been they don't even use. Valley is almost equated with Meiteis. But the fact of the matter is, the valley, you have Muslims, or we call it Pangals, you have, Rajasthanis, the Jains, the Agrawals, the Sikhs, many people stay there, along with many tribals, population from the state itself. So it's like Meiteis have been responsible for. The funny thing is, in fact, I must tell you that I have this, I hold it back. I've lobbied with the CM, two CMs, Sri Ibobi and Sri Biren Singh in the first term, that you need to address these basic grievances of the Hill people and do something like such a commission report, a form a committee, investigate, is it true or not? Because much of these grievances are also manufactured to serve this divisive politics. Look at, you already are telling me how many tribals are in the bureaucracy in any of these tribal populated states, and check with Manipur. You will be, see, in the top 20, there are only 3 Meitei police officers. Bureaucracy, this is almost like Yugoslavian experience. You have such a dominant presence in the bureaucracy. In all India level, among the secretary level, you have 2 or 3 ST people. In Manipur, you will see the reverse of that one. Manipur's political economy is marked by that. You have these personalized chief ministers and mantris who get access to the wealth of the wealth and the power of the state, and they have hanger-ons. The bureaucracy, their right-hand men, their workers, all do the boot level. They are the one who absorb this money, and it doesn't reach the people.
Regarding this Kuki tribe, there is no such thing as Kuki tribe. In Nagaland, there is any Kuki tribe. Or in Assam, there is any Kuki tribe. In Mizoram, there is any Kuki tribe. But in Manipur, due to certain demands, they are specifically recognized by the tribe. But in 1950-51, all tribes were recognized initially as any Kuki tribes and any Naga tribes. So people who have grievance have the right to be recognized as any Kuki tribe. So that that's their aspiration. So and the Tharos also should not counter this too much, because they don't want to be, there are clans who don't want to be identified as Thado. So that grievance has to be also recognized. And secondly, let me look into the issue of particularizing certain department, for instance, the police. Right now the top bureaucracy mostly are filled by the Kukis. But look into the lower level, right? It's a different case now. In the last few years, there's hardly any Kuki police officers coming up, any administrative officers coming up, because it's become so competitive. For instance, the Minas has joined the ST group, or there is a kind of change field. Like, for instance, the inclusion of Manipur as in the 7th schedule has given advantage to the Manipuris. The inclusion of Meiteis into the OBC. All this has come up together, and many IS officers from the Manipuri groups are also coming up now, filling up all these, posts in the lower level. So within few years, they would occupy the top level of the bureaucracy, the police, the administrative officer.
Also, let me
do Manipuri also, for instance. Till few years ago, there was only 2 tribal professors for so many years. It's only recently that through certain grievances expressed, so this grievance has been taken up, and then many tribals, for instance, in the last few years have been recruited in Manipur University. Otherwise, there is absence of tribal communities in universities and others.
This is a debate which will take hours. Like, if one community gets a reservation, another doesn't, advantages, disadvantages to one against the other. The debate can go on. I'm not getting into that. I'm just coming to what you said earlier. And this is why this is where I want Professor Akoijam to come. You are saying that the BJP, especially Chief Minister Biren Singh, has been actually pushing this agenda. Do you agree?
Agenda of?
The clashes, the kind of policies he has been, or the kind of politics he has been playing.
No, I think I would not single him out. I think I'm saying that the political class in that state, this time what has happened is they have bitten more than they can chew.
But when you say political class, which parties?
All of them. I am saying that they are playing it. If there are differential development in different parts of the state, please go ahead and do a proper investigation rather than communalizing the debate. I am saying that there is a new patrimonial economic system. There are topographical, demographically bounded policies of the government of India from the top down planning model, which they are trying to reverse it now. You have heard it in India. We'll have a bottom-up planning system, topographically sensitive planning system. And there is a different land holding system among what we are calling these cookie chain groups. So there is a mushrooming of village. It's related to their land holding systems. So is it because that, it can move on another village, you can have it. But if the government of India plan, for example, hypothetically says that, so and so village, if so much population and household is there, you connect it, electrified it, road, then many of these villages will be out, which is known. Ask any economist, they will tell you this is a problem. So there are structural issues associated with the planning model. Instead of this political class will say that Meiteis are responsible, and some Meiteis will react, oh, their politician is doing it. Incidentally, even some tribal activists also said, why blame the Meiteis when your leaders have been part of the game of cutting?
But she was there. She spoke to many Kuki MLAs. They were also making this allegation. They were not blaming the Meitei community. But they were saying
I've seen in their letter. It is obvious. In interviews on national media, they saying that it is the Meiteis. This has been going on for decades. They have to be confronted. They have to be confronted and saying that. That is why the surprising. I feel that the whole political class they are together at one level. Let me not evade what he has said. In the recent time, there is also a demonization, particularly of what we call Kuki. But calling them immigrants and foreigners and so on, which I don't accept. Not all Kukis are immigrants. We must keep it. But let's remember that calling Kukis as immigrants and foreigners was the same vocabulary spoken during the Kuki Naga clash. Naga used still written documents, the rebel leaders speaking on video. You still have it. It's not Meiteis, but Meiteis have acquired this language recently. But I must say here, many Meiteis will also tell you, there are Kukis which has been part and parcel of our life, of the state. And we suspect that, this population is marginalized. There must be something. But we will find it out. I don't know. Is it true or false? But this violence has given us a critical look at this dimension. A Kuki who have been together with us will not raise this kind of a hatred.
What Kuki MLAs were telling her, what Kuki MLAs were telling her, Professor, how can I just come to you? What these MLAs are saying that Biren Singh government has been following a majoritarian politics. Is that true? I want the views of both of you.
I'll come in like this. Some wants to be the savior of the tribal. Some wants to be the savior of the Meiteis. In this game plan, they produce this narrative that creates hatred among communities. And the end game is that you get the benefit as a class. You must understand, don't distinguish as Meitei or something. For me, some politicians will come up as the savior of my community, and they are playing this game. And unfortunately, especially among the tribal scholars, they are helping in this project by not pointing finger at this class dimension, this particular neo-patrimonial economic order. And instead of that, they also think that, by getting this, there is a reason for this, by the way, was autonomy and others. Because if you and I are economically interdependent, we will not fight because our interests will get hurt. But your well-being and my well-being is dependent upon Delhi's funding. So if you create a new structure of an autonomy and structures, you get direct access to that wealth. So don't think that this autonomy is devoid of this elite class interest of economic access to the doles given by Delhi.
So you think that this grant in aid system that Manipur has been, having, it's one of the reasons for...
Yes, but remember that in this nation, national income is generated by the states. So there is nothing called a national income in that sense. It's all generated from the states. And so there is a redistribution, and you have a certain states like Manipur where the special need is there. But I think the political class should not have this subservient economic independence. They should be financing, doing to generate capital formation and economic growth. But this identity politics and rhetorics of the political class in either way have been distracting us from focusing on the real issues.
I think before that, I have so many things to reply to what has been said, comparing Meghalaya and Manipur, for instance, looking into Meghalaya and commenting that the aid increases are redundant. Fine. at least
These are literatures, not mine. Social scientists works on that institution, non-Manipuris.
Right? Give the northeastern states are mostly characterized or categorized as special category states, where from Delhi you got more than 70% of the grants. The budget comprises of these grants. For instance, in Manipur, 90% of the budget comes from Delhi. So why, if there is a unwillingness to grant?
So my last question would be, fine, this is a long debate, it can go on. What we have, the situation we have in Manipur today, where from here? Now, two communities physically, geographically segregated as it is. What's the way forward now?
I think the way forward is to discuss immediately how political decentralization can be done in this state, so that if there is a reluctance based on ethnic lines, why can we give sixth schedule status to this autonomous council based on districts, right? That is the first step to be done, and right now, there has to be a kind of accommodations to the grievances. For instance, no one can go back to Manipur usually now in the coming 1 year. So at least why can't we upgrade the tribal university in Sadar Hills to a full-fledged central university? Why can't we have more colleges in Tongkholal, in Thongkholal, in Saikul, or in other places? For instance,
So my point is, how do we resolve the current crisis?
That is what he's saying.
Yeah.
I think that's the first step to solving this crisis.
That is exactly what I said.
But these measures are going to take time, right?
No, it's not. It's not going to take time. What I'm saying is that, so is this violence a means to an end, and that end is either six schedules or a regional autonomy? That's that separatist, ethno-nationalist mobilization, exclusivist agenda. Is this the end game of this violence? That's why, because if you're asking him and saying that what is the way ahead, you said the sixth schedule. So I'm saying that the MLAs has said separate administration. So I was thinking, is this violence orchestrated in order to achieve particular end? I mean, otherwise, what is that Meiteis is going to achieve with this violence? What they dream about, a united Manipur? By only cleaning from the Imphal areas? Is that? No, it cannot be. So I am saying that the first step from here is, that's why I said, unfortunately, the civil society must talk. At the end of the day, you must remember that these tribes will not disappear from that part of the world. Meiteis are not going to, there's other tribes called Naga groups, these different tribes are not going to you are bound to live in that place, one part. And remember this, in the evolution of that state, Meiteis have been part and parcel of that story. It's ingrained deeply. And if and they are part of a hilly area, and they are part of that topography, that ecosystem. And if you think that these people who are like 53% right now, according to some estimate of the entire population, with that kind of a memory of thousands of years, with having an experience of running a state, an independent kingdom and so on, you can box in like this and capture in a few things by whichever forces, you are only keeping a time bomb for a further explosion in the days to come. 100 years, 1,000 years, you will not be able to do that. So it must be kept in mind. That's what I said. These separatist tendencies of an ethno-nationalist kind, are they using this violence as a means? Why it is so eager to say that end game should be a separate administration? I said, if it is sixth schedule and all this autonomy is for the grievances, there are ways to address these grievances. And I'm saying that this autonomy, I am saying it clearly, that this is driven by the need to get direct access to the wealth in Delhi. 90% jo hai na, you need. So how will you get it? I'll tell you metaphorically. They said, why is a certain disciplines are kept apart in the university system? This is an American paper, and it says, because you want a different funding, different posts to be created. And many of these things have been driven by that. If you really want to have these grievances of a development, please ask and demand the state to form a committee to investigate the factors behind these back-warners differential development and what is the present status of various communities in Manipur, and compare them in all India level or any other states. And I can tell you that the picture of Manipur that you painted as if that is a tribal in the other areas, you will not find it. You will never find it.
All right, gentlemen, on this note, we will have to wind up the show. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.